with what could only be described as sheer horror. The iridescent being's normally composed surface rippled with waves of alarming crimson. We acquired several juvenile specimens of the newly discovered species, senior researcher Meveloth reported proudly, their tendrils writhing in obvious self-satisfaction. The extraction team performed admirably. The small ones were separated from their pack and secured with minimal difficulty. We have them contained in Laboratory 7. These juvenile specimens, they wouldn't happen to be from that Class 12 deathworld we just discovered? The one with the bipedal apex predators? Zixtal's voice had taken on a distinctly strained quality. Precisely. The humans, yes. Fascinating creatures. Did you know their young engage in recreational combat simulations they call games? The research possibilities are endless. Meveloth's excitement was palpable, completely oblivious to their superiors' mounting distress. How many? Zixtal managed to ask, already pulling up emergency protocols on their neural interface. 7. A perfect sample size. They appear to be from the same educational pod, all approximately 8 solar cycles old by their reckoning. The researchers' tendrils waved enthusiastically. They've been remarkably active in containment. Always moving, climbing, investigating. One of them even managed to disable 3 security fields before we upgraded the containment protocols. Zixtal's crystalline form briefly lost cohesion, a sign of extreme stress in their species. You mean to tell me, they began slowly, that you kidnapped 7 human children from a school? Well, when you phrase it that way. The security officer's interruption was cut short by a station-wide alert. The very walls seemed to vibrate with the incoming transmission's intensity. Attention unknown vessel. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You have committed an act of war against humanity by abducting our children. You have exactly 10 minutes to surrender and return them unharmed, or we will demonstrate exactly why taking human young is considered a Class 1 suicide attempt across 12 galaxies. But that's impossible. Meveloth's tendrils drooped in confusion. We're in unexplored space. How did they find us so quickly? Zixtal accessed the external sensors and immediately wished they hadn't. No fewer than 15 warships had somehow slipped past their supposedly state-of-the-art detection systems. The vessels bristled with weapons that made their research station's defenses look like children's toys. Oh, this gets better, Zixtal muttered, scanning the incoming data. Do you know what those children were wearing when you took them? Standard human juvenile attire, some sort of uniformed clothing with identification badges. Meveloth froze mid-sentence as realization dawned. Yes, those weren't just any school children. You abducted the students from the Terran Diplomatic Corps' Family Education Center, including, I might add, the children of 3 fleet admirals, 2 planetary governors, and the Terran ambassador to the Galactic Council. The research station's internal communications suddenly crackled to life with a much younger voice. Hey, alien guys? This is Katie Chen. You know, one of the kids you grabbed. My mom's the scary admiral who's about to blow you up. She says we should probably move away from the purple wall because that's where the boarding teams are coming through. Also, Jimmy figured out how to turn off your gravity controls, so sorry about that. Right on cue, artificial gravity failed throughout the station. Zixtal managed to anchor themselves with their crystalline structure, while Meveloth's tendrils flailed uselessly in the zero-G environment. The children disabled our gravity control? Meveloth asked incredulously. But that's a triple encrypted, physically isolated system. Yes, well, according to these security logs, they also reprogrammed our food synthesizers to only produce something called ice cream, orchestrated what appears to be a revolt among our maintenance robots, and... Zixtal paused, checking the data again. Somehow taught our universal translator to replace every third word with something called fart. 7 minutes remaining. Admiral Chen's voice boomed through the station. Be advised that our sensors detect unusual gravity fluctuations in your station. If our children are practicing their zero-G maneuvers again, please be aware that the last alien vessel that experienced this reported severe cases of motion sickness. We recommend surrendering before the barrel rolls begin. As if to emphasize the point, delighted squeals of, "Watch this," and "Zero-G parkour" echoed through the station's corridors, followed by the distinctive sounds of various expensive scientific equipment being repurposed as improvised spacewalk launching pads. Zixtal turned their attention fully to Meveloth, who had finally managed to grab onto a support beam. You know, there's an old human saying that was added to our xenological database last cycle. Messing with human children is like playing catch with an antimatter grenade. I never quite understood it until now. Surely their response is disproportionate, Meveloth protested weakly. We were merely conducting scientific research. Oh no. Let me explain exactly how badly you've miscalculated, Zixtal began, their crystalline form taking on a lecturing pose despite the lack of gravity. Humans are what we classify as a hyper-protective guardian species. Their evolutionary history as pack predators, combined with their unusually long juvenile development period, has resulted in some interesting psychological traits. A distant crash punctuated their explanation, followed by what sounded suspiciously like children's laughter and the whirring of commandeered cleaning robots. You see, humans don't just protect their young. They don't simply guard them or ensure their survival. No, humans have elevated the protection of children, all children, not just their own, to something approaching religious significance. They will happily die to protect a child. More importantly, they will unhesitatingly kill to protect one. 5 minutes remaining. Also, Katie, honey, please stop teaching the alien robots to dance. We're trying to maintain an appropriately menacing atmosphere. But Mom, they're really good at the robot. Get it? Because they're robots. The sound of mechanical whirring was now accompanied by rhythmic thumping, and what appeared to be a child's voice beatboxing through the station's emergency broadcast system. Did you know, Zixtal continued, seemingly resigned to their fate, that humans are the only known species to have developed an entire subset of their military specifically for rescuing children? They call them PED Ops, Pediatric Extraction and Defense Operations. Elite soldiers trained in everything from tactical stuffed animal deployment to zero-G bedtime stories. That can't be real, Meveloth stammered. Oh, it's very real. And you know what's heading toward our docking bay right now? An entire division of them. The most feared military unit in human space. And you gift-wrapped them a reason to pay us a visit. The station shuddered as something began cutting through the outer hull. The children's voices grew more excited. 3 minutes remaining. Children, please assume crash positions as practiced. No, Jimmy, you cannot keep the reprogrammed cleaning robot. Yes, Katie, you can take pictures for your school presentation on what I did during my diplomatic emergency. But why? Meveloth asked, genuine confusion evident in their fluctuating coloration. Why devote so many resources to protecting physically immature specimens? It's not efficient. Zixtal managed the crystalline equivalent of a sigh. Because that's what humans do. They take one look at a small, defenseless creature and decide they would rather tear apart the fabric of space-time than see it come to harm. They're the only species we've ever encountered that developed tactical warfare specifically to minimize civilian casualties. Do you know what they call it? Precision strikes. They literally invented new ways to wage war just to better protect the innocent. The hull breach alarms began blaring, only to be quickly replaced by what appeared to be human children's music about a small aquatic creature of some kind. The security feeds showed the children had somehow hacked the station's audio systems. Baby shark, do, the station sang cheerfully as heavily armed human soldiers began pouring through the breach. 1 minute remaining. Security feed shows. Katie Chen, are you conducting an impromptu science experiment with the alien gravity controls? That's my girl. Just like your mother. But maybe save the quantum physics for after the rescue? You know what the really interesting part is? Zixtal continued, watching the security feeds with morbid fascination. Humans consider their approach to protecting children to be completely normal. They're genuinely shocked when they discover other species don't share their intensity. There are documented cases of humans adopting and protecting the young of species that were actively trying to kill them. The sounds of professional soldiers trying not to laugh while maintaining tactical discipline echoed through the corridors, along with excited children's voices greeting their rescuers with enthusiastic demonstrations of their zero-G acrobatics. 30 seconds. Also, we're detecting some interesting modifications to your station's computer systems. Did our children hack your mainframe using nothing but a universal translator and what appears to be a game of hopscotch as a coding interface? The truly remarkable thing about humans, Zixtal remarked, as armored figures began appearing at both ends of the corridor, is not their capacity for violence. It's their capacity for forgiveness. Treat their children well, and they'll practically adopt your entire species. Harm a child, though. They let the thought trail off meaningfully. What do we do? Meveloth asked, their tendrils curling in distress. We surrender. Immediately and unconditionally. And then we pray to whatever entities you believe in that the human's legendary capacity for forgiveness extends to well-meaning but catastrophically foolish researchers. Time's up. Security Officer Zixtal, our scans indicate you've been attempting to talk sense into your colleague for the past 10 minutes. Your efforts are noted and appreciated. Children, wave goodbye to the nice, crystalline alien who tried to explain why kidnapping is bad. The security feeds showed all 7 children cheerfully waving at the cameras, while floating in various improbable orientations, surrounded by both heavily armed soldiers and what appeared to be a conga line of reprogrammed maintenance robots. As the humans began the process of formally securing the station, Zixtal turned to their still shocked colleague. Look on the bright side. This will make an excellent addition to the official xenological database entry on humans. I suggest we title it, Warning. All human young are considered under protection of multiple military forces, educational systems, and what they call mom groups. Approach with extreme caution. Hey, alien scientists! Katie Chen's voice came through the speakers one final time. Thanks for the impromptu field trip. How I spent my weekend essay is going to be amazing. Also, sorry about introducing your robots to TikTok dances. Mom says the psychological damage to your AI systems probably isn't permanent. The last thing the 2 aliens heard before being taken into custody was Admiral Chen's voice, now significantly warmer. All right, kids. Who wants ice cream? Yes, Jimmy, you can bring your new robot friend. No, Katie, you cannot keep the gravity controls as a souvenir. Yes, I'm very proud of how you applied your coding lessons in a crisis situation. Zixtal made a mental note to update the xenological database with one final addendum. Notice, human children require no weapons to be exceptionally dangerous. Their capacity for chaos is exceeded only by their species' ability to weaponize that chaos in their defense. The fact that humans consider this normal should tell you everything you need to know about why they are classified as a Class 12 deathworld species. Encrypted addendum to Galactic Council records. Incident report. H7249. The school field trip incident. Following this event, the Galactic Council formally adopted the "Don't Even Think About It" protocol regarding human children. All member species are now required to take mandatory classes in human parental psychology, with special emphasis on the concept of mama bear syndrome, and why triggering it is considered an act of suicide. The research station's maintenance robots still occasionally break into synchronized dance routines, but their therapists say they're making progress. Chisentant report. Human children were subsequently classified as Class X entities, capable of turning any situation into a learning opportunity, usually with catastrophic results for anyone who underestimates them. The Terran Diplomatic Corps now includes this incident in their standard first contact packages, filed under Why We're Actually the Nice Ones, a guide to not learning this lesson the hard way. Katie Chen got an A+ on her essay. Order. I call this emergency session of the Galactic Council to order. High Arbiter Venthrix's crystalline form pulsed with authoritative blues and golds, immediately silencing the chaotic assembly of representatives from across known space. Before them stood an unusual gathering. 7 human children, still occasionally floating when they thought no one was looking. Their rather intimidating parents, including 3 admirals trying not to look proud. A thoroughly chastened researcher named Mevloth, and a resigned security officer Zixtal, who had somehow been roped into giving expert testimony on why we really should have known better. This council has convened to address the recent incident involving unauthorized research conducted on human juveniles. Venthrix continued, crystal facets flickering with what might have been suppressed amusement. However, before we proceed, I must ask, who is operating that maintenance robot performing what appears to be a traditional human victory dance behind the prosecution's podium? Sorry, Katie Chen called out, quickly tapping something on her personal device. The robot froze mid-spin, one appendage still raised in what looked suspiciously like a disco pose. Force of habit. They're really good dancers once you upgrade their mobility subroutines. Admiral Sarah Chen pinched the bridge of her nose, though the effect was somewhat undermined by her barely concealed smile. Katie, sweetie, what did we discuss about hacking alien technology during formal diplomatic proceedings? Only if it's relevant to my testimony? Katie replied innocently, while behind her, several other maintenance robots quickly powered down. their appendages still frozen in various dance moves. Quite, Venthrix managed, their crystalline surface rippling with what definitely looked like suppressed laughter now. Let us proceed with the first item on our agenda. The formal presentation of evidence regarding the unauthorized acquisition of human research subjects. Mevaloth floated forward, tendrils drooping in evident embarrassment. Honorable Council, I wish to state for the record that my actions were motivated purely by scientific curiosity and a complete disregard for Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the Galactic Scientific Ethics Code, interrupted Dr. Eleanor Martinez, one of the human parents and, as it turned out, the leading xenobiologist for the Terran Diplomatic Corps. The section specifically addressing research protocols for juvenile specimens of sentient species, which I helped write after the last incident involving well-meaning but catastrophically misguided researchers, lie. There was a last incident? Mevaloth asked weakly. Oh yes, Dr. Martinez replied cheerfully. Would you like to know why that section exists? It's actually a fascinating story involving 3 Rigelian scientists, a group of human kindergartners on a museum field trip, and what we now call the Great Dinosaur Liberation of 2157. My colleague Jimmy's mother here was actually involved in writing the subsection about why you should never, ever underestimate human children's ability to repurpose educational materials as tools of chaos. Jimmy, currently engaged in what appeared to be teaching quantum physics to a fascinated group of alien observers using nothing but a rubber ball and interpretive dance, gave a thumbs up without missing a beat in his explanation of wave-particle duality. I believe, Venthrix interjected smoothly, that we should focus on the current situation. Senior Researcher Mevaloth, please explain your actions. What followed was perhaps the most unusual scientific presentation in Galactic Council history, frequently interrupted by helpful corrections from the children themselves. And then we utilized our most advanced containment protocols, Mevaloth began. You mean the ones we got through using a hopscotch-based encryption breaker? Offered Sarah, one of the other children, who was currently teaching a junior council member how to make paper airplanes out of official documents, and implemented emergency security measures. The ones we turned into a multiplayer video game? Added Tommy, who had somehow acquired a small audience of alien diplomats fascinated by his impromptu lecture on human playground games as tactical training exercises, and maintained strict environmental controls. Until we convinced your AI that playing Baby Shark on loop was a vital life support function, Katie chimed in helpfully. The presentation continued in this vein for some time, gradually transforming from a formal inquiry into something more resembling a particularly chaotic parent-teacher conference, albeit one with interstellar diplomatic implications. Let me see if I understand correctly, Venthrix said finally, their crystalline form shimmering with what might have been either diplomatic concern or barely contained mirth. You abducted 7 human children, who proceeded to hack your supposedly unhackable systems using playground games as coding interfaces. Transform your research station into what humans call a bounce house. Teach your maintenance robots not only to dance but apparently to form a union. Convert your food synthesizers into ice cream dispensers. And somehow turn your universal translator into what humans refer to as a dad joke generator. The translator thing was mostly Jimmy, Katie explained. He said if we were going to be research subjects, we should at least make the research entertaining. I see, Venthrix replied, not seeing at all. And at what point did you decide to start conducting your own research on alien technological systems? Oh, that was part of our homework, Sarah explained brightly. We're supposed to document and analyze new experiences. Mom says every crisis is a learning opportunity. Dr. Martinez beamed proudly. The children's impromptu field research was quite impressive. They've already submitted their findings to the Terran Journal of Xenotechnology. The paper is titled A Child's Guide to Alien Computer Systems, Why Grown-Ups Should Really Install Better Parental Controls. I see, Venthrix managed, their crystal structure now definitely vibrating with suppressed laughter. And what do the children think should be done about this situation? Katie raised her hand so quickly she briefly achieved liftoff. Oh, we have a presentation. Before anyone could object, the council chamber's main holographic display activated, showing a carefully prepared slideshow titled, Why Kidnapping Kids is Bad, and How to Science Properly. A guide by Ms. Chen's 3rd grade class. What followed was perhaps the most unusual diplomatic presentation in galactic history, complete with crayon illustrations, star stickers, and surprisingly insightful suggestions for improving interspecies scientific cooperation. And that's why we think there should be a galactic junior science program, Katie concluded. while behind her, the previously deactivated maintenance robots performed a synchronized dance routine to emphasize key points. Because if you're going to study kids, you should just ask us to help. We're actually really good at science. The council chamber fell silent, broken only by the whirring of robot appendages and the distinct sound of several admirals trying very hard not to laugh. Well, Venthrix said finally, their crystalline form now practically glowing with amusement. I believe we have a unique opportunity here. Senior researcher Mevloth, your methods were thoroughly inappropriate. However, the children's suggestion has merit. Therefore, this council proposes the following. 1. The establishment of the Galactic Youth Scientific Exchange Program, under proper adult supervision. 2. Mandatory updates to all research facility security systems, specifically to protect against what shall henceforth be known as the Hopscotch Protocol. 3. And immediate funding for Dr. Martinez's proposed study. Why asking nicely works better than kidnapping, a guide to not getting your research station turned into a playground. The motion passed unanimously, though several council members were distracted by Jimmy's ongoing physics demonstration, which now involved 3 rubber balls, 2 paper airplanes, and what appeared to be a complete rethinking of string theory. One final matter, Venthrix added, turning to the children. The council recognizes that you were the wrong parties in this incident. What would you consider appropriate restitution? Katie glanced at her fellow impromptu scientists, then smiled brilliantly. Well, those maintenance robots are really good at dancing now. And we did kind of promise to teach them the Macarena. And that was how the Galactic Council's first official interspecies dance party began, featuring 7 human children, their highly amused parents, a growing number of increasingly enthusiastic alien diplomats, and an entire corps of maintenance robots performing surprisingly graceful synchronized dance routines. In the corner, Zixtal watched as Mevloth was dragged into learning the electric slide by a group of determined third graders. You know, the security officer remarked to no one in particular. Attention all personnel! A cheerful artificial voice announced. This is a standard notification that the station's maintenance robots are about to begin their scheduled performance of the scientific method shuffle. Please be advised that spontaneous dancing may occur. This is normal and, according to the human children, totally awesome. I thought we disabled their performance subroutines, Zixtal whispered to Katie. Oh, we did, she replied brightly. But they formed a robot rights advocacy group and negotiated performance time into their new contracts. Did you know artificial intelligences can hire lawyers? The paperwork was filed by a very nice automated legal system that Jimmy taught to play jazz. Before Zixtal could process this information, the doors slid open to admit a delegation that caused every adult in the room to freeze. The Arxur, a notoriously serious species of silicon-based lifeforms known for their rigid adherence to logic and complete lack of humor. We have come, announced their leader in perfect, if somewhat stilted standard galactic, to observe this most irregular educational protocol. The assembled adults held their breath. The Arxur were renowned for their traditional approach to education, emphasizing rigid discipline and structured learning. Their presence at such an experimental program was unprecedented. What happened next would be recorded in diplomatic archives as the Great Icebreaker Incident. Little Sarah, completely unfazed by the imposing silicon beings, walked straight up to the Arxur delegation and asked, "Do you want to learn how to make friendship bracelets? We figured out how to weave them in 4 dimensions." The Arxur leader stared down at the small human, their crystalline structure rigid with what might have been shock or possibly critical system failure. Friendship? Bracelets? Yeah. We discovered that if you braid them through a localized quantum field, they change colors based on emotional resonance. Watch. Before anyone could stop her, Sarah pulled out what appeared to be a simple string bracelet. As she moved it through the air, it began to shimmer with impossible colors, each strand weaving through dimensions that shouldn't technically exist in normal space-time. The Arxur delegation's collective crystalline structure vibrated in what xenologists would later identify as their species' first recorded expression of wonder. This is most irregular, the Arxur leader stated. Then, after a pause that felt like it stretched through several dimensions itself, "Could you demonstrate the technique?" What followed was perhaps the most surreal scene in galactic diplomatic history. A group of notoriously severe silicon-based beings sitting cross-legged on the floor, a feat previously thought physically impossible for their species, learning to weave friendship bracelets with a group of human children while discussing quantum mechanics. You see, Jimmy was explaining to a fascinated young Archer, If you loop the string through this way, it creates a stable quantum entanglement. We discovered it accidentally while trying to make cats' cradles in 0G. Fascinating, the Arxer youth responded, their crystalline form glowing with interest. And this serves what practical purpose? It looks pretty, Sarah answered. Also, we figured out how to use the quantum entanglement to send messages across light years. The colors change based on your friend's mood. Dr. Martinez leaned over to Zixtal. Should we tell them the children just invented faster-than-light communication using craft supplies? I've learned it's better just to add it to their research papers, Zixtal replied sagely. Though I do have one question. Why are the maintenance robots now performing what appears to be an interpretive dance of quantum entanglement? Oh, that's their new educational outreach program, Katie explained, appearing suddenly beside them in the way that children somehow always manage. They're demonstrating scientific principles through dance. Next week they're doing a ballet about thermodynamics. The Arxer delegation, now thoroughly entangled in both friendship bracelets and quantum physics discussions, had begun to display colors previously unknown to science. Their leader, now sporting several multidimensional friendship bracelets, addressed the assembly. We have made an error, they announced formally. We came to evaluate this program's educational validity. Instead, we have discovered that human children have independently developed 17 new branches of quantum physics, revolutionized faster-than-light communication, and... They paused, examining their friendship bracelets with what might have been embarrassment. Taught us the value of what they call arts and crafts time. Don't forget the dancing robots, Tommy called out helpfully, as the maintenance crew launched into what appeared to be a surprisingly accurate mechanical representation of string theory. Indeed, the Arxer leader continued. The Arxer Collective formally requests admission to the Galactic Youth Scientific Exchange Program. Our young ones have much to learn about this irregular approach to education. Just wait until you see what we do in music class, Katie enthused. We figured out how to use harmonic resonance to stabilize wormholes. The robots are learning to play jazz in 11 dimensions. Dr. Martinez quickly stepped in before anyone could ask for a demonstration. Perhaps we should start with the basics. Now, who would like to participate in our first official cross-species science project? Every hand, appendage, and crystalline structure in the room raised in enthusiasm. Excellent, she continued. Today's project is about cultural exchange through... Oh no. She trailed off as she saw Katie approaching with what appeared to be a large container of glitter. Don't worry, Katie assured her. We stabilized it this time. The quantum tunneling effect only happens if you mix the sparkly ones with the holographic ones. We wrote a whole paper about it. Glitter physics. Why entropy has a sense of humor. As the session descended into what would later be described in official reports as controlled creative chaos, Zixtal turned to Dr. Martinez. You know, when I first encountered human children, I thought they were agents of chaos. Now I realize there's something far more interesting. They're agents of innovation. That's a very diplomatic way of saying they turn everything they touch into an adventure. Watching as the Arxer youth began experimenting with multi-dimensional glitter patterns under Katie's enthusiastic guidance. Speaking of which, Zixtal added, why are the robots now performing the Macarena in what appears to be a perfect visualization of 11-dimensional space-time? Best not to ask, Dr. Martinez advised. Though I must admit, it's a surprisingly effective way to demonstrate higher dimensional physics. The day's events would later be recorded in the official galactic archives under the title, How Human Children Taught the Galaxy to Dance, a study in educational innovation and quantum friendship bracelets. The Arxer delegation submitted their own report, titled, An Analysis of Irregular Educational Methodologies and Their Unexpected Applications in Theoretical Physics, with additional notes on the practical applications of glitter in quantum mechanics. The maintenance robot's performance received rave reviews, though several physicists complained that their demonstration of quantum entanglement through interpretive dance was showing off. Katie Chen received yet another A+, this time in Advanced Xenodiplomacy through Arts and Crafts. And somewhere in the vast database of the Galactic Council, a new addendum was added to the educational guidelines. Notice: when human children suggest that something might be fun, prepare for either a breakthrough in theoretical physics, a spontaneous dance party. Both simultaneously, all of the above should be considered normal, and according to extensive research, totally awesome. End report. Addendum. The Galactic Youth Scientific Exchange Program has since become the most successful cross-species initiative in known space. Its waiting list now extends into the next century, though several species have suggested